Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about specifically what it means to have your Mercury in Cancer or Mercury within the 4th house. My name is Brandon and I am doing astrology videos here on YouTube. This is part of a much longer series that I have been working on where I've been going through all of the planets in Aries in the 1st house, in Taurus in the 2nd house, Gemini in the 3rd house, and so on and so forth, and now we are on Cancer in the 4th house. So this is the Cancer week of all of the Cancer videos and 4th house videos that I have made. And so if I'm entirely new to you, welcome to my channel. I have a bunch of links down below if you're interested in booking with me, learning more about me, all those sorts of things. But down below as well, most importantly, is going to be a couple things. One is going to be the playlist of all these videos that I'm speaking on right now. They're all going to be kind of coming out over the course of every single season, moving forward from here. So feel free to check that out if you have any placements prior to Cancer, and then of course anything after Cancer will be loaded into that playlist as they come out. So make sure to subscribe so you can kind of see those things coming out. And then down below as well is going to be the timestamps for when I talk about what, because I am going to be talking about both Mercury in Cancer and Mercury in the 4th house. So I have the timestamps down below where you can see that there. And then also down below, I am going to show you the link to specifically any sort of website or resource to help you figure out what your chart is. If you're trying to figure out, do I have my Mercury in, Cancer in the 4th house? What is this? I don't really understand. There's a video and a link down below for you as well to check that out. So yeah, without further ado, let's just kind of get started and kind of warmed up about what Mercury just generally means within astrology. See the next part. So Mercury within astrology. Mercury is a very malleable, a very adaptable kind of planet. So Mercury tends to really kind of become whatever it is in via the house, as well as, via the sign and aspects, things like that. So Mercury will very much kind of adapt to wherever it is being placed within the chart, and it will also signify a lot of our mental focus being placed within that area. So there's going to be a lot of energy around specifically whatever Mercury is kind of wanting to talk about. So our mind is kind of brought into that way of focusing upon things and that way of understanding things. So depending upon Mercury's placement in the chart by sign and house, you're going to see this different mindset or different approach to how you understand language or how you interpret the world. And this is very much the mental space, which Mercury rules that. It rules our perspective, it rules our nervous system, it rules anything that has to do with communication and communication of all kinds, but more so communication from our own internal kind of opinions. There's a lot of opinions involved with Mercury, a lot of just back and forth conversations, communicative skills, things like that are all Mercurial. Whereas Jupiter is more of the philosophical side of things. A lot of planets have their own different ways that they do things. And so Mercury, for example, in a Jupiterian sign, would be a mind that is thinking about philosophy and law and meaning and purpose and bigger things. And so Mercury's placement by house and sign is going to layer what the native is really thinking about, what they're really focusing in on, what they're really trying to understand, and where their mind is kind of going, and also how their information is being processed, and what they really kind of focus in on in a conversation, how they interpret information, and just kind of how they sense those things. And so, and also by the house placement, this is really going to be, like I said, a lot of where the communication lies within the chart, as well as kind of how the chart is being asked to focus its intention or its attention towards that specific topic, and the themes related to that. And so you may have Mercury in Cancer but may not have it in the 4th house, and vice versa. So it's something of really importance to understand both your Mercury placement by sign and Mercury placement by house, which is why I'm doing this series here. So if you have your Mercury in anything prior to Cancer, feel free to check that out, and anything after Cancer, stick around, check out the playlist as those things come out within those seasons. You will see it coming out there. Now, with Mercury as well, it does also rule kind of the sales process, and how we kind of understand things and want to sell ourselves to a person. And then it also rules kind of how we really analyze ourselves in that sort of self-analysis process, because it rules the mind, both the external kind of communicative, kind of adaptable, kind of salesy, talking about yourself, kind of going throughout your day, those sorts of conversations, but then also more of the internal kind of critic, and kind of that ability to really understand and kind of break apart your own kind of mental kind of way of moving in life, essentially. So without further ado, we're going to get started specifically on what it means to have Mercury in Cancer. Okay, so we have Mercury within the sign of Cancer. So Mercury in Cancer is going to have a very soft, sensitive mind, a sensitive voice. Mercury also does connect to the voice and the vocal ability. So those with Mercury in Cancer naturally have their mind focused towards softness and towards sensitivities of themselves and others. So there's a really deep mind that is really focused upon the individual's feelings, their individual's safety and security, and how they meet their emotional needs. Because Cancer rules that process. It rules the ability for us to sit with ourselves and understand our feelings and understand that this is how we are communicating based off of our feelings. So there's a very high emotional intelligence that comes with Mercury in any water sign. But Mercury in Cancer, I think, has it the most clear, because in Scorpio and Pisces, the other water signs, they struggle a little bit because there's added layers of lessons with those specific planets, those specific signs for Mercury to be in. But when we have Mercury in Cancer, it's simply about this person's ability to feel their feelings, sit in their feelings, allow their feelings to really kind of come from within and find those right words, which is why all Cancer placements have this very strong gift of emotional intelligence, of emotional kind of sensitivity when it comes to people, when it comes to understanding how to talk to people, and a specific example with Mercury, and how to connect with people in a way that is very, very sensitive and soft and very aware of one's feelings and the person that's around them. And so when it comes to Cancer Mercury, they have an innate kind of sensitive gift, especially because Mercury and the moon both kind of rule the public and sales. So Mercury in Cancer can be exceptionally good at sales. So can the moon in Gemini, or even the moon in Virgo, but more so moon in Gemini kind of has more of that salesy quality to it. Whenever you put Mercury and the moon kind of in any sort of connection, you're going to see someone who naturally communicates about their feelings. And if Mercury and the moon are in their own difficult aspect, there's going to be more of a layer around how I communicate my feelings, how to find the right words for my feelings, things like that. But in general, Mercury and the moon together, the one thing they really have in common in like mundane astrology and a lot of things that we speak about when we kind of make these bigger, broader kind of predictions is sales and working with the public. And so the moon definitely rules the public and public's perception and kind of the way that we're connecting to the undercurrent of the emotions of society. That's really the moon. And Mercury is that salesperson, the mind, the one that's literally communicating about the public. So with this, if we had Mercury in Cancer, and let's see, with Mercury in Cancer with a moon in Aquarius, for example, this is another thing of a lot of importance for all these Cancer placements. It's important to understand your moon placement because that will give you more of a context of how you're reaching those emotional needs and what you're emotionally kind of more focusing in on as well. Because Mercury in Cancer focuses in on the feelings and the emotions and how to reach that sensitivity. But then when it comes to the moon sign in itself, that tells us more of like that emotion, like the emotional kind of reactivity and how emotions have been regulated through the person. Whereas Mercury in Cancer just wants to regulate their feelings, understand the right words for their feelings. But anywho, if we have Mercury in Cancer with a moon in Aquarius, for example, this is where you'll see, this really kind of humanitarian person where they really are speaking for the public. They are the public spokesperson because they have this sort of understanding that the public needs care, right? I have a friend who has Mercury in Cancer and moon in Aquarius, my best friend actually, and he has been, for the past 8 years, been working within public mental health, which I think is so kind of perfectly aligned to Mercury in Cancer and an understanding of that moon in Aquarius, where Mercury in Cancer understands that let's talk to the public, let's understand what their feelings are, where their family comes from, their heritage, their sort of rootedness, their kind of makeup, right? Their energetic and emotional makeup and history, or let's understand their history. And then Moon in Aquarius is really working on a large community scale and being that spokesperson for the community. So he does a lot of social work. He does a lot of stuff that is related to communicating about, about society at large and about what all these communities need within their homes. There's a lot of home health care that he specifically had done, but we see that with Cancer, or we see that with all the Cancer placements. They have this sort of home caring sort of quality to them. And when we think about quite literally home health care, those are all things that are kind of related to the Cancer archetype. And so knowing that my best friend has this Mercury in Cancer, it definitely speaks to that, where he is kind of forced within working within like a more private sector of people, really working within people's homes that people don't really talk about, where you're really forced to see how people are dealing with their feelings, how people are understanding their feelings, how people are when they go home, because Cancer and the fourth house both really bring up these themes related to that private life, that sensitivity that we have when we go home, and kind of building that inner world so that we can really create the best public life possible, but really caretaking and nurturing that inner world. And we see that that's where the moon comes in. That's where any fourth house planets come in, is they're really bringing our mind to those things, especially when it's Mercury in Cancer. Our mind is really brought to that inner world, that private world, our family, our roots, and then other people's inner world and other people's kind of ability to sit with their own feelings and what their inner world and home life looks like. And so you can see a lot of home care, even restaurant like kind of people that really want to like even do catering. I think that's something that is really prominent for Mercury in Cancer, and Mercury in the fourth house. It's kind of bringing that that gift, or that kind of working with your hands, which is ruled by Mercury as well, and bringing that into the home, or bringing that into a caretaking role. And so we can see a lot of chefs with Cancer placements, especially if they have Cancer and Taurus placements as well. You'll see this being something that's a little bit more prominent, where there's a connection between home care that's focused on sustenance and safety. Mercury in Cancer can also be really great for stock investing as well, because whenever we see Mercury with the moon as well, it does also rule not just sales in the public, but also the stock market, anything that's trendy, because the moon is meant to understand the ups and downs and the trends and how things are kind of evolving over time organically. And so there's an almost, with all Cancer placements, they're really tapped in to what society really needs, and the emotions and the kind of emotional undercurrent of our kind of trends in life. And that's why you'll see the stock market be potentially connected to those with Mercury in Cancer, and also Venus in Cancer. We'll see a lot of those sorts of kind of really intuitive kind of moves. An intuitive mind is really what we see with Mercury in Cancer. And it's one of the, like I said earlier, it's one of the better water Mercuries it's actually the best water Mercury in my opinion, for many reasons, because it has this natural instinct, because it's a cardinal water sign, has this natural intuitive instinct to focus in on certain things. And I think the thing about all Cancer placements, it's really important to understand the power of emotional intelligence and the power of their own ability to feel their feelings and know what they're feeling, and be able to find the right words for their feelings so they can speak on, like, okay, I'm feeling this sort of way because of this happened, right? That's a really big gift for Mercury in Cancer, and they're going to do it organically anyway. Obviously, you're going to want to look at what else is going on with the chart where Mercury is kind of aspecting, and what the moon obviously is doing, and kind of how this person is really wanting to find that emotional peace and emotional nourishment, right? Because if we have a Mercury in Cancer with their moon in Aquarius, they're going to be very detached in how they understand their feelings, and they're going to do a lot of conceptualization and kind of a lot of external objectification of their own feelings, and that's how they deal with them. Versus if we had a Mercury in Cancer with the moon in Pisces or a moon in Scorpio, they're going to dive into their feelings in a very intense way, and find the words through that intensity versus through the objectivity that would come for a moon in Aquarius. So that's why the moon sign is really important when it comes to these Cancer placements, because you want to see specifically what your emotional instinct is, and how you really want to look at your feelings and how you want to feel your feelings and find the right words for them and things like that. So that's a really big part of this, and I would also recommend, if you have your moon sign in any of the previous signs, to definitely check out those videos there, because the moon has so much of a sensitivity to this. As we go through Cancer season, there's so many different lunar qualities of needing to feel safe, needing to feel secure. The thing about Mercury Cancer as well, I really urge you to, if you have Mercury in Cancer, to understand that not every day is going to be as clear for you to understand, because with the moon, it's up and down. It has this kind of waving quality to it. And so we see that with Mercury being in Cancer, there's this up and down with understanding how they feel every day, or putting the right words to their feelings or other people's feelings. And that's something that over time, Cancer gets really, really good at, and any Cancer placement gets good at, but Mercury in Cancer gets really good at finding those right words, being able to communicate that with people, being able to find the right conversations and the right topics and the right ways of phrasing something to somebody, which is why, once again, Cancer placements have a really great connection to being therapists and counselors and people that are able to really bring out that sensitivity in people and sit with them in their emotional kind of depth, and allow those feelings to kind of come through while they're finding those words. They're very, very intuitive with their mind and with their emotional instincts. There's a lot of that there. And so with Mercury in Cancer too, there is definitely this quality, and we'll see this more with the 4th house where it's a little bit more highlighted. There is this quality of Mercury in Cancer with speaking about their family and kind of really understanding their family and understanding the emotional imprint that family gave to them. You'll see that with all the Cancer 4th house placements. But Mercury is really more so keened in on finding the right words to communicate those things, finding the right conversational points, finding the right ways to speak on these feelings, and really enjoy that process in a lot of ways, because feelings are fleeting in a lot of ways. They're not always going to stay around, and Mercury in Cancer understands that as they age and as they come into their own and learn whatever Mercury in Cancer lesson they're trying to learn based off of those specific aspects that Mercury is making. But as we go through Mercury and Cancer go throughout your life, you'll understand the really big gift of impermanence, of just things being temporary, and having this kind of up and down and this kind of flow that comes with it. So understand that Mercury in Cancer gives you a strong gift of knowing the right words at the right time, with the feelings involved. The more you tune into your feelings, the more you understand your feelings, the more you sit with yourself and allow yourself to feel those feelings and find the right words for them, especially kind of tease it out with somebody. A lot of the time, Mercury Cancers need someone to talk those things out with, where they can learn specifically how, what these feelings they're feeling are, right? Find the right words for those feelings. That's really what Mercury does in Cancer. And I think as they go through that time in their life and those emotional things and a lot of family dynamics come up, they have to learn how to discern their feelings from others' feelings, and especially from their family's feelings, and knowing how their family's emotional impulses and their way of understanding and communicating their feelings is different than theirs, right? And understanding that there's a big karmic line that kind of goes with that. And you'll see that a lot with Cancer and 4th house placements, is this idea of karmic debt with the family and connecting with the family and being that spokesperson for the family, as well as especially really prominent for Mercury, of being able to speak on what your family lineage and your heritage kind of impacted you and find the right words for that, right? Being able to really speak for an entire community or an entire family unit and being that kind of mouthpiece, essentially. And that might be difficult for certain people to kind of hear with a sense of sensitivity. But overall, Mercury Cancer will learn that sensitivity and will learn the gift of their own sensitivity, of their own words, of their own feelings, so that they can find the right words to help others and help themselves. And it's a truly beautiful placement. And if you have your Mercury in Cancer and you're interested in any of my content or my readings or things like that, feel free to look down below, and I have a bunch of stuff down there with my courses, as well as booking with me and stuff, so feel free to check on there as well. But yeah, I appreciate you, Mercury Cancers, for being here and listening to this, and I hope this gave you some gifts for your own sensitivity and your own mind, to be able to really allow you to feel your feelings and find the right words for them. Mercury in Cancer, one more thing I wanted to add, and this is just Mercury Moon in general. This definitely speaks to people that are able to become artists and tap into that natural public perception and public feeling. That's the thing with the Mercury and Moon, similar to sales and trends and stock market. It's a similar sort of quality where they're able to really connect to the emotionality of their audience and emotionality to whoever they're speaking to. And Mercury in Cancer also has this natural kind of singing ability or vocal ability as well, that brings sensitivity and allows people to feel at home or feel nurtured as they kind of lean into that sensitivity as a Mercury in Cancer individual. So that's the last thing I really wanted to add in for some reason, because it just kind of came through. But anywho, with that being said, we're gonna move on to the final part, which is gonna be Mercury in the 4th house. Okay, so we have Mercury in the 4th house. So Mercury in the 4th house has a lot of conversations, really in a private sense. So when we put planets in the 4th house, which for those of you that have watched any of the other videos that I've done thus far, you'll see that there's a big focus upon the private life, the life of the native, and kind of their rootedness, their private life, their home life, and being able to bring their mind into that perspective and find the right sort of conversations and the right words within those private spaces. And so Mercury in the 4th house, it brings the mind, the opinion, even their own kind of like communication style. It really puts that into the rootedness of the family. And we see this a lot with 4th house planets, more so than Cancer placements, of this karmic breaker. Cancer placements have it as well, but it's really dependent upon that moon sign within that. The 4th house in general, whenever I see 4th house planets, I'm really kind of bringing that person deeper towards themselves and their family heritage, and ask them to really go into their family heritage, into their private life and their internal world, and understand the gift that is. And with Mercury, there is a lot of communications that can be had, and a lot of gifts when they share their opinion with what they went through in their private life, and when they bring that out. Because all 4th house planets, although they are really private and they have a very internal kind of sensitivity to them, they really want to be public, and they want to use that gift from a private sense and then bring it out into the world. And that's really what they eventually will do when we have Mercury at the bottom of the chart. It does need to go out and do public things. There can be a little bit of a hermit quality with this, as it's related to Cancer as well. There can be a hermiting and kind of putting yourself in a box and not allowing yourself to be talked to or talking to people. So there can be a lot more privacy with Mercury in the 4th house. But the thing about 4th house planets, as I've been saying throughout this series, is it's really about creating that foundational kind of home base, and that kind of ability to go home and rest your head and feel safe and feel secure and feel that sort of ability to just relax into your own feelings and relax into your own circumstances, and create that inner world and that home life that is so important and is so relaxing to you, so that you can go out into the real world and do what you need to do and go out into the public world. And a lot of people that have 4th house planets, they're really brought into that private world, and they have a very rich private world and a rich home and a rich family life. And when I say rich, I don't mean like necessarily financially rich. I mean more in the sense of like a lot of context and a lot of focus, especially with Mercury. Mercury focuses the mind there. And so there's a lot of conversations of needing to speak with the family, about the family, towards the family, through the family. There's a lot of that stuff. So Mercury in the 4th house can also be related to people that are connected to mediumship. I haven't really spoken on this yet in the Cancer series here, but there is this natural inclination towards talking to your ancestors, right? When we see Mercury in the 4th house, there is this really deep communicative process of a lot of sensitivity, a lot of intuition, and it typically comes at a space of loved ones or ancestors, or a rootedness as well. And so that ability to connect with others' ancestors as well as your own is really seen pretty prominently with any 4th house planets. But Mercury I see a lot of when we see Mercury in Pisces, even Mercury in Scorpio more so, that in that 4th house there's a lot of deep information and a lot of power that they hold once they feel their feelings and lean into their ancestry and lean into their loved ones and their heritage and their kind of karmic line. There's a lot of that there. And so being that spokesperson for the family is a really big part of this when Mercury's here. There can be a lot of family sensitivity kind of conversations, learning how to communicate about sensitive topics and learn how to talk with your family, learn how to be that kind of scribe for the family. I've seen as well. I had a client of mine who had a Mercury in their 4th house, and they were literally, and I forgot the exact alignment in its entirety, but I know they had Mercury in that 4th house, and they had, I think it was a connection to Saturn as well. So I believe it was Mercury and Capricorn in that 4th house, and there was some interesting stuff that was connecting the father figure in specific and the family unit. And what ended up happening, I believe it was Mercury and Capricorn, and then there was Saturn and Gemini, that sort of thing, something to that effect. And essentially what had happened was this woman was literally having to go through her deceased father's kind of history and biography, and be able to delineate and make a condensed story out of all of this information that her father had gone through, and be able to be a person that is literally speaking for the family and being that scribe for the family was something I saw with that. It is something where that person is publishing that book, and it'll be a book that they're bringing out, and they will be really bringing into and living that legacy that we see with the father. As we see Mercury in Capricorn in the 4th house, there's a lot of like making a career out of writing. We see that a lot with Mercury and Capricorn in general. But in that 4th house, to make a career out of writing about family and writing about heritage and emotional kind of sensitivities in that regard. So that's something I found really interesting when we talk about Mercury in the 4th house. Is I always think about that client that I had a while back, and how they were literally writing their father's like biography, essentially, from collecting all of these different letters and things that he had written in his life, and all these photos and things, and really compiling them and doing a really good job of sustaining, which is what Mercury in Capricorn really does in that 4th house. Now Mercury in Aquarius in the 4th house, a little bit different. This is where kind of the thing I spoke about earlier, we're being the spokesperson for a community or for a public mental health sort of thing. That's where I'll see that a lot with Mercury in Aquarius in the 4th house, where they might have been like through a very interesting and difficult family or living situation, and then being able to speak upon that. So this is for some reason something that would be really common for people that specifically key into the idea of homelessness or community kind of conversations, and being able to be a spokesperson or a role model or an advocate for proper housing for people is what I tend to see, or just in general an advocate for their own heritage with Mercury and Aquarius in that 4th house. It's kind of similar to what I was speaking about with my friend who has Mercury in Cancer with the moon in Aquarius, but Mercury in Aquarius in the 4th is a lot more advocating for specifically homes and caring for people and basic needs, and being able to feed people and provide food and help hunger and homelessness. That's a lot of what I tend to see when we have like Mercury in the 4th house in a more Saturnian, especially Aquarius kind of alignment, because it makes a career out of it. It makes some sort of long-term goal that it's working towards, and it brings its mind into that conversation. So those are Mercury and the Saturn signs there. Now, if we have Mercury in more of the watery signs, like I said, like Scorpio or Pisces, I kind of spoke on this a little bit more previously, but Scorpio in the 4th is definitely going to have more of the mediumship, and so is Pisces. They're both going to have that like kind of mediumship quality. The difference being with Scorpio in that 4th house with Mercury, there is a deeper kind of power struggle that comes with the mind and the kind of anxiety, so they could kind of be attacked verbally by their family and need to kind of speak up for that, because there is a lot of sensitivity, and that, especially Mercury and Scorpio in the 4th house, definitely has a karmic breaker, and then one to speak out against their family is a lot of what I tend to see there. And then Mercury in Pisces is a lot different. This is where we'll see the kind of person who got thrown into a family and is using that family for their own creative endeavors and creative fuel. And they can really create a beautiful home life in a lot of ways. But it's about finding their way to communicate why they're here and what they're here to do. Because that's the fourth house too. It's like what we're here to do in a rooted sense. It's very kind of instinctual, and it's very rooted is the only word I can really think of right now. But it really is fundamental in what we are here to do, because it is really digging into who we are. And depending upon that fourth house, you're going to see a lot of qualities kind of brought in relative to that fourth house sign, which in that regard too, it's important to look at what the dispositor is, or the ruler is, of that Mercury sign. So for example, like I said earlier, with the Mercury Capricorn individual who has Saturn in Gemini, there's an interesting mutual reception in there actually, but a conversation between those two planets when we talk about Mercury in a Saturn ruled sign. Well, where's Saturn, right? We talk about Mercury in a Mars ruled sign, where's Mars, right? Things like that are really what's important to kind of get a bigger picture with that. Within that, also kind of shameless plug, down below I have some of my courses there, and I actually do have a mutual reception seminar down there if you're interested in checking that out as well in that regard. But then also I do have a beginner's course if you're interested in that too. But anywho, moving on from that, with Mercury and Pisces, like I said, there is this really deep sensitivity, deep kind of creative quality that comes from the family, and that ability to root into that and kind of see why they're here and kind of find that vision within it and connect to that spiritual sense that Pisces has kind of done. And that's why, like I said, Mercury in Scorpio or Pisces is a lot of that mediumship quality, that psychic quality, the ability to connect to one's own emotional kind of ancestry and find the gifts in that. Now, if we move on from there and let's look at, Mercury in more of a fiery element, let's look at Mercury in Aries, Leo, and Sag. Starting with Sag, there is a very philosophical part of this. There's a lot of looking for meaning, looking for purpose, similar to the Pisces Mercury, except this is more on the basis of kind of the belief system that was given to them from the family, and being able to be that teacher for the family. And almost, this is where I definitely would see a teacher that would be working from home, or a college professor, or specifically the topics they want to teach are relative to that fourth house. So think of teaching about real estate, teaching about home improvement, teaching about anything that is helping homelessness or architecture is a lot of things that I can see here too. Also similar to Mercury and Capricorn in that fourth. I could see someone who's teaching those concepts, of those foundational kind of rooted concepts that we see in the fourth house of kind of identity and emotional kind of nurturing in that regard. So Mercury and Sag in the fourth can also be a great counselor. All the fourth house planets can definitely have that, as they've had to kind of understand that kind of foundational emotional quality there. So that's part of it there. Mercury and Leo in the fourth, this is where we're going to see a lot of creativity, similar to Pisces, except this is going to be someone who, once again, uses their opinion and their story from their childhood and their family to kind of, obviously they're going to identify with it being Leo, but then there's a part of this that really wants to share who it is and share that family life. And depending upon the sun sign in that Mercury and Leo, you're going to see a little bit of differences of how that Mercury and Leo in the fourth house person would want to share their story, share themselves, and with that sensitivity. And once again, it's important to see what Mercury's aspects are within that fourth house and how it's kind of communicating in various amounts of ways. So look at that for sure. And then as we see Mercury in Aries in the fourth house, this is a very combative kind of leadership, I want to stand alone. This is similar to Mercury in Scorpio, where they have to speak up towards their family and kind of have a conversation against their family or motivate their family. You can see that a lot with Mercury in Aries, and same with Mercury in Scorpio. But Mercury in Scorpio is motivating from a space of, we can't do this anymore, this is disempowering. Mercury in Aries also has that, but it's more of a motivating because you want to try something new and you want to bring us into a new direction. And it's not entirely disempowering, it's more it's not as emotional as Mercury and Scorpio is going to be with the fourth house. This is another work from home energy here. A lot of fourth house planets here you'll see with work from home energy. Mercury in Aries, Mercury in Capricorn, Aquarius, Gemini, and Virgo. I'll kind of all see those being connected to working from home. And then if we have, let's put Mercury in air. So you have, we already did Aquarius here. And then we have Libra and Gemini. And Mercury Libra in the fourth house, this is similar to the kind of artistic quality you'll see when we have Leo Mercury in the fourth or Pisces Mercury in the fourth. But Libra Mercury in the fourth, this is, once again, this kind of communicative quality with their partner and understanding that kind of peacefulness. You'll see a lot of home improvement energy with this whenever you see Mercury Venus connected to the fourth. Same with Mercury Taurus in the fourth house. So this is kind of a similar thing. This could be someone who is doing a lot of real estate investing with a partner in specific, or working on beautifying the home. And there's a lot of aesthetic things there. Interior design is really big for Mercury Taurus, Mercury Libra in the fourth. But this is where you're going to see more of a relational quality that's needed in that, and kind of a back and forth with Mercury Libra of finding that peace. And so this is where you'll once again see a really good therapist, really good counselor, because they have that gift of being able to sit with someone in that solitude and kind of in that privacy and find those right conversations. It's really, really beautiful in that regard. And then in addition to that, we have Mercury and Gemini in the fourth house. This is Mercury's at home here. So this is going to be way more of that scribe energy that I spoke about. This is where the conversations with the siblings, if there is siblings for Mercury and Gemini, are really important to be able to find the right words for what you went through as a family and find the right ways to kind of bring that in. Like I said, kind of all the Mercury and air in the fourth houses, and a lot of Mercury and water in the fourth. All Mercury in the fourth, I feel like, not all of them, but most of them have a natural sensitivity towards their emotions and the emotions of others. So that's what makes them really good therapists, really good emotional counselors, things like that. And then, Mercury and Taurus in the fourth, like I said, there is this natural kind of beautifying quality there. And there's a definite making money from home kind of quality there. This is also where I'll see stock investing, day trading, things like that, Mercury and Taurus in that fourth house. And home improvement, real estate investing is a big part of this as well. International real estate investing with certain alignments. And then Mercury and Virgo in the fourth, this is another work from home energy. But it's more of finding the right words for helping someone through something and kind of being that guidance. This is where also you'll see someone who may work as a home health care aide, or a maid, or someone who is working within a restaurant or within a kind of home-based business, both within a home and within something that is considered to be a home, like a restaurant, or even a hospital kind of has that quality as well. Mercury and Virgo in that fourth house, working for a hospital, working within that sensitivity, and working within a family dynamic, because in hospitals as a nurse, you work within families and within their dynamics a lot. So there is that too with the fourth house we see. So it's really about, as you can kind of see as we're going through this, there's a lot of sensitivity with that fourth house, with Mercury being there. There's a lot of different qualities that Mercury can play out in the fourth house. But it's really all about bringing that conversation back to sensitivity, back to that family unit, whatever that may be, and back to that rootedness, whether you're creating it for yourself and find the right words for that, or if you're creating it for others. It's a really powerful Mercury, and the mind is really brought into their ancestry, their heritage, the heritage of others, the ability to bring something privately. And so being able to sit with your own private feelings is really important as a Mercury fourth house individual. So allow yourself to really feel your feelings if you have Mercury in the fourth house, and find the right words for those feelings, because that's going to be your biggest gift here, and being able to really sit with all of what you are experiencing. There's a lot of power here with that Mercury in the fourth house, so make sure you use it wisely, and make sure you use your mind and the sensitivity that comes with that for the purpose of creating more safety and security for yourself and others. That's going to be your biggest gift. An overarching theme of this is making more safety, security, whether it's financial safety and security, emotional safety and security, or any sort of just ability to be yourself. Kind of, that's more with like the Mercury fire placement of showing off who you are and allowing other people to be inspired by that. There's so many different qualities of Mercury in the fourth house. And if you have Mercury in the fourth house, feel free to let me know. I'd love to hear down below what your experience has been and what you've had to communicate about, and how those private conversations have helped you, or those emotional kind of topics have kind of been a theme throughout your life. So I appreciate you all for being here and listening to this. If any of you are interested in, anything down with me below is going to be linked down there with my readings and my course, and all those things are down there. So feel free to check that out. And of course, if you have anything after Cancer, feel free to subscribe, and that will be something that you can check out as those videos come out in this playlist. The playlist is down below. And if you guys have any other questions, feel free to put it down in the comments. I love you guys so much. Thank you for being here with me as I did the series. Thank you. Love you, and I will talk to you guys soon.